afternoon. Good afternoon. Ed Stee, your host of Kicking It with Brother Ed. It's 2 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, September 24th. Man, we're so glad to see you. And as always, we have quite the program for you. We got a special guest. Many of you probably don't even know this, but this month, September, has been designated as National Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. We have a brother that I've known for a long time, a friend, a colleague, co-worker, all of that. He's Wayne Harris. He's the retired deputy chief of Rochester, New York Police Department. He's a member of Noble, New Jersey, of which I am as well. He's also a member of Noble, the West New York chapter, and he's on the National Executive Board for Noble, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, because he's the treasurer. And I ask you guys to forgive my appearance. I had surgery this past week, and I got all of these contraptions on and everything. It's kind of weighing me down, but it is what it is. Doesn't matter. I'm here about you. We're going to educate you this day. We're going to do a couple of things, talk about some things that you all should be interested in. And if ladies are on here now, which they usually are, I'm going to ask you to grab the fellas, as I indicated during the advertising season. Grab the fellas, tell them to pay attention, because this is so important. It is very important. So I want to introduce you to Wayne Harris. I already told you what he's about, what he does, Noble, New Jersey, West New York, National Noble. So let's give a round of applause for our special guest, Wayne Harris, retired deputy chief of police for Rochester, New York. Amen. Let's get Brother Wayne up here. Brother Wayne, come on up.
Hey, what's going on?
All right, there he is. Amen. How you doing, man?
I'm well, man. It's good to be here. It's good to be here. It really is.
Well, it's certainly good for us to have you here. We're very happy that you didn't mind coming and spending some time with us and sharing with us. We appreciate that totally. Oh, and by the way, Nye Latte, the co-host, is on. She'll be chiming in from time to time. But right now, we want to focus on you. Why don't you tell us, Wayne, Chief, as I oftentimes call you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your upbringing, and so on and so forth?
Okay, so I was originally born in Buffalo, New York. My father was a college professor, kind of bounced around from universities in Ohio. He taught at Wilberforce for a little while. He actually went to Wilberforce a little while. Taught at UB, taught at Syracuse University, taught upstate New York in Potsdam, New York, and eventually landed here in Rochester as the director of the Educational Opportunity Center. So I've been here most of my life. Grew up as a kid here. Never really intended on being a police officer. That was not on my radar. I thought maybe I'll be a lawyer, businessman of some sort, maybe a professor like my father. But I backdoored it. I ended up working for the Salvation Army when I was about 16, worked my way up at this camp until I was about 24, 25 years old, kept going back every summer. Developed a skill set that sort of helped me communicate with some of our youngsters out here, and eventually moved back to Rochester, and a job opened up as an intern for the city of Rochester, serving as a youth outreach worker, specifically for the youth gangs here in the city of Rochester. But the job was contingent on me taking the police exam, which I had no intention of ever doing. Took it, did very well on it, entered the academy in 1987, and walked out the door a little over 30 years later as a deputy chief of police. So my last assignment as a deputy chief was as the director or the deputy chief of community relations and engagement. So I was the one that was going out into the community trying to figure out ways to connect the department and the citizens that we were working with and serving.
Let me ask you something. That job that you had that required you to take the police exam, can you go over that again? Maybe some of the audience got it, but I didn't get it fully.
So back in the late 80s, Rochester had some significant gang problems here in town. Some pretty well-known gangs that were just doing stuff they had no business doing out here. So at the time, the city thought it would be a good idea to put together a civilian staff that could go out into the community, talk to these young men and women, get them to focus on something a little bit more constructive than crime or harming themselves. So we put together stuff like basketball leagues and just sort of sit down talking and trying to work stuff out. But that particular job was contingent on me taking the police exam. Like they wanted, I don't know if they used it as a filler or a filter to get into the department, but someone made the decision that if you were going to do the job, you were going to take the police exam and then ultimately become a police officer.
That's pretty awesome. And look what it did with you, 30 years, and then you retire as a deputy chief of police.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. Like the odds of getting to be at that level in any police agency are pretty slim.
Right.
And I had a choice. I could have just stayed as an officer. I could have gone towards investigations, or I could have gone towards supervision. I sort of gravitated towards supervision, not because I wanted to be a boss of anybody, but because I wanted to make sure policing was done right. And I had a couple of incidents during my career that I felt were not done the right way. And I kind of wanted to make sure that didn't happen with anyone else.
That is excellent. And I know that you're very active and noble as well. And listen, we didn't come here, I know, to talk about this, but since we're on it, I just want to put this in and then you can continue. I want to ask you this question. Were you involved or witnessed or had to take action in any incidents like those that have become very infamously popular these days, like the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, all of those incidents? Were you involved in any of those?
Not to the extent that what we're seeing right now. I mean, policing is an interesting industry.
Yes.
And it's funny that you asked me this question because about a month ago, I gave a presentation, actually 2 months ago, I gave a presentation on warrior versus guardian mentality. And it was given to some civilians here in the community that wanted to know a little bit more about it. And, they were all under the impression that what they wanted out of their police agency were guardians. But the reality is, to be a police officer, there are times when you have to be a warrior. There's times that, unfortunately, physical stuff occurs and you are called upon to fight. And I start my presentation generally by saying this: if you were to ask my wife right now whether or not she wanted me to be a warrior or a guardian when I was in uniform, she'd tell you in a heartbeat she wanted me to be a warrior because she wanted me to come home at the end of the day. Right. Now, those are dynamics that every man and woman that wears a badge face. They're human beings just like everyone else. So when the circumstances dictate having to be physical, then you have to be physical. And when the circumstances dictate not to be, then you shouldn't be. Unfortunately, though, we've seen, especially recently over the past couple of years, some of those circumstances that don't require officers to become physical, becoming physical, and even leading to death.
Right. Well, I thank you for that input, and I know exactly what you mean. Having come from law enforcement myself, I totally get it. So, Chief, how did you obtain knowledge regarding this whole issue of the prostate, and even this month we're in now, which is about to end, Prostate Cancer Awareness Month? How did you come about getting involved in that and getting knowledge of it?
Well, I wish I could say it was from a book or some documentary, but it wasn't like that. So the way personally I became involved was following COVID. I have a very, very thorough doctor who believes in making sure that everything is okay. So he goes above and beyond in just doing examinations. So after COVID, when I hadn't been to him for a while because no one was going to doctors, no one was going anywhere, he sent me through a barrage of different tests. One of them happened to be just plain old blood work. Now, at the time, I had never even heard of anything called a PSA, but it's a level in our blood that is an indicator of the possible presence of prostate cancer. Right. So for a person my age, I'm 61 years old, person my age, a PSA of about 3.5, 4
Not
is
too bad, right?
it's not too bad. It's getting to that bad part, but it's not there yet. So when he ran my blood work, it came back as a 4. Came in, had a conversation. It triggered an MRI, and the MRI ended up identifying 2 lesions on my prostate, on the front of my prostate. That triggered the biopsy, which I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but it was probably the most unpleasant experience that I've gone through. It was very difficult to reach. I'll tell you this one thing because it's a reality, and I want to be real with this.
Absolutely.
To get to where my lesions were, the urologist had to go through my urethra, which unfortunately caused some scarring. It caused some clotting. It ended up, causing me excruciating pain. Just that alone caused me excruciating pain. They were able to get to the 2 lesions. Biopsy material was collected, sent away to the lab, and came back positive for prostate cancer, stage 1 prostate cancer. Now, I have to sidetrack for a second because the way I found out, in my opinion, was kind of messed up. Many of our audience I know now probably have phone applications that, in my case, is called My Chart or My Care, where they'll give you summaries of,
Yes.
Okay, cool. So on the first day that I was feeling okay following the biopsy and following the recovery from having to go through my urethra and all that, my phone app went off. And it's just a message. So I took a look at it, and my results had come back, and I read on my phone that I had cancer. Now, to me, that's like the most impersonal way in the world to find out that you have a life-threatening condition. And I was crushed over it. I'll be very, very honest with this. My wife had set up a chair downstairs for me outside. She was getting ready to help me get down the steps and just chill outside. And on her way up the stairs, I had to show her my phone. I called her. I said, "Come here for a minute," and showed it to her, and we cried. I'll be straight up. We cried because that was the news we did not want to hear. Now, what pissed me off was I tried to call my urologist, and it took him 36 hours to get back to me. So to me, it was impersonal. Wow. To me, it was, you getting this kind of news that you have this disease that can kill you. And you can't get in touch with the doctor that's responsible for helping you out with this. Now, that it didn't work for me. So that was a challenge.
Of course. Oh, did you freeze up there, or did you just?
No. I didn't know if you wanted me to continue, if you had another question.
I do, but I got some things to interject here. I'm glad you paused. One, the PSA, prostate, if I remember, you correct me if I'm wrong, prostate specific antigen, correct?
I believe that's what it stands for, yes.
Yes. So that's the number that all men are going for. And I'm older than you, so I've been doing that a long time. And I even had the hose up my urethra, and it is not a pleasant thing. But the thing I want to ask you about before we move on is this regarding all of those. If your PSA number, because a lot of guys are scared. And, look, let's be real. A lot of guys, and myself included, when the doctor puts on those rubber gloves, we get a little nervous. See? And I think a lot of guys are hesitant about that. But tell us, if you would, how you went through this procedure. And it wasn't by your own admission, and like you said, you like to keep it real, and that's good. Having gone through that, had there come a time where you thought well, this is not the most pleasant thing I've been through, but sure as hell is better than getting actual prostate cancer or a cancer treatment after this, because you said stage 1. It could have been stage 2, 3, or 4, you know, or worse.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell us about that process in your mind. What was your mind working? How was your mind working at that time?
So, men all across the planet, have a prostate. And, to find out how well your prostate's doing, one of the things they do is a physical examination where they put on that rubber glove and they insert their finger into your rectum and they measure the size of your prostate or the characteristics of it, whether or not it's a smooth surface or whether or not there are some ridges involved in there, whether or not it's enlarged since the last time that you had an examination. So you're always, you become used to after you have the first couple, every time you get an examination, it's going to happen. And I'll just tell you a real funny story real quick. Excuse me. I went to, when I first went to my urologist, they send their physician's assistant in, and this young woman, and she's running the interview, and she says, okay, we're going to do the quick examination. And, I looked at her and I was like, I'm a man. I was like, not really, for you, sticking your finger up my behind right now. And
Right.
she was cool. She said, you know what? I get it. I understand. I'll send the doctor in. Okay, cool. Brother walked in, was like 6'7", with a hand that could palm a basketball. And second he did the exam, I like instantly regretted, trying to be cool with this woman and say, yeah, no, I don't really want you to stick your finger on my behind.
Right.
That's the funny side of it. The reality
too,
but it's real, and it's probably not the first one that felt like that.
Right.
But here's the deal, though. As Black men, it's exceedingly important for us to find out where we are health-wise. I'm 61 years old. I still feel like I'm 25 sometimes.
Right.
I want to be indestructible. When we're kids, we're growing up, we're indestructible. I played football, I wrestled, I ran track. I was the one that was out there when I was a young officer. I got into a couple of scrapes when I was out there. So you have this feeling that you're indestructible and nothing is going to touch you. And the reality is that nothing could be further from the truth. We have to get to the point where, as Black men, we're going to our doctors, we're getting regular checkups, and we're getting stuff like PSA checked because, African Americans are prone to prostate cancer. So it's something that we really, really have to make an effort to do.
Amen. Amen. That's very well said. We appreciate that. Now, you're involved in this movement now, right? This anti-prostate cancer campaign, the campaign for enhanced awareness, correct?
Yeah, sort of semi-officially, I guess. I sort of looked at it this way. I was blessed with, having the doctors in my life that were willing to look a little bit further and to find out. And let me tell you what I mean by that. After my diagnosis, I got 3 different opinions. The first one from the doctor that did my biopsy. I asked for a second opinion, got a young man that had, been out of med school and was very, very thorough. But I wanted someone a little bit more seasoned. So I thought about getting another or a third opinion, went to a radiation oncologist and walked into the room. And the first thing he said was, I have a problem with your diagnosis. And I didn't understand what he meant, but I asked him to explain. And he said, the MRI should not have picked up your cancer at all, unless your cancer is more problematic than they are saying it is. And that sort of made me pause and made my wife pause. And I asked him, so what does that mean? Am I not stage 1? And he said, no, you're stage 1. But the genetics of the biopsy, the genetics of your tumor may be a little bit more problematic than what is usually the case with prostate cancer.
Right.
I asked, so what do we do? And he said, well, there's a test called a Decipher, which can test the genetic material of the biopsy to see whether or not it's problematic or whether or not it's just sort of the regular nothing's run of the mill about this, but it's just sort of the regular prostate cancer that people are identified with. So I said, listen, if there's another test, let's run with it. And he was like, well, insurance might not cover it. And I said, all right, well, how much does the test cost? And he said about $300. And I was like, I don't care if insurance doesn't cover it. I'll give you the $300. Just do the test. So they did. And insurance, by the way, did not cover it. But the genetic material of my tumor did come back as more problematic. So for me, sitting down with this guy, made me question why no one else that I had said or that I had met with said this. And the reason is that it's not a common test that they do for biopsy material. They don't do it often, and hence the reason why insurance companies won't pay for it. But it's necessary, and to get a clear picture of exactly how you're doing on the inside. So I decided to go with him, and I had three options when I was diagnosed. I could have done nothing, just they call it surveillance. I could have just watched my cancer to see how it was going to go. They said that I was, relatively healthy, and that, prostate cancer is generally slow growing and doesn't always, get bad. Didn't really want to do that option. I could have had it removed, which would have put me down for about a year because, recovery can be a little bit challenging, even though the robotics that they use now to remove a prostate are well more advanced than they were, or far more advanced than they were, 10, 20 years ago. Or I could have gone towards the radiation. So I opted to do radiation seeding, where they actually went in through my perineum and seeded over 95% of my prostate. And then I followed that up about a month later with radiation beaming. So I go around now. So my treatment was twofold. The first was radiation seeding, where they actually implanted radiological material in my prostate. And they tether it to it so it won't fall out or go anywhere. But the idea is to have the radiation seeds basically destroy any of the cancer cells that are in there as the radiation seeds degrade. I followed that up with radiation beaming. Yeah. And then they did the radiation beam. No, you want to know what I mean? The procedure to have that done, even though it was in an operating room versus the doctor's office where my biopsy was done, was just worlds better than what I had to go through for the biopsy. The perineum is that part of your body that's between your legs, basically. They went through there with some needles and just implanted into my prostate. I had no bleeding, no real bruising of any kind. I was down for maybe 4 or 5 days, and I wasn't golfing after 4 or 5 days, but not so very long after that was I back on the golf course.
That is excellent. And I'm glad you shared that, because some people, like I said, myself included, who are in fear of this. And I read somewhere where it says 1 out of every 9 males is going to get diagnosed with prostate cancer anyway. So there's a high probability that we will. That's like 10% if my math serves me.
Yeah.
So, it's good to know that some of the treatments are not all like, repulsive. So.
No, I mean, it was like I said, the biopsy was horrible. To get it removed, I've heard others say it's not bad. I've heard others say, nah, it messed me up pretty good. For me, I felt my treatment was the appropriate way to go. And thus far, the checkups that I've had, and now, by the way, after you get a diagnosis like this and after you take care of it, you'll see a doctor once every 3 months. You're going to get your blood work done once every 3 months. I see my urologist every 6 months and my radiation oncologist every 6 months. So,
oh wow. So once it's done, they're kind of like, as long as your blood work comes back okay, they're kind of satisfied with it until they see you again, huh?
yeah, so the way I'm generally checked now is they'll do blood work to see where my PSA level is. And so far, my PSA level is like below 1.
Wow.
And then they'll follow up with a
That's better than
physical
mine.
examination too. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, my
Excellent.
oncologist was seriously surprised. Like he was expecting a 50% drop in my PSA, and I was at about a 90% drop in my PSA.
Wow. That's awesome. Now let me ask you this. Not to put you on the spot, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I know a lot of guys worry about this. What about the natural outcome of these things in terms of male nature?
Yeah, so there's some unavoidable consequences of this, and you're talking about erectile dysfunction, and
Right.
it is a reality, and so it's been explained to me, especially with the treatment that I received. Um,
Mhm.
the radiation actually destroys the seminal vessels in our bodies.
Mhm, mhm.
And by the way, if you go for the surgery, they're going to remove your seminal glands, so you can no longer produce semen. But also, if it's not done well, the blood flow that causes an erection can also be diminished. So it's very, very common for men that go through this to, get on Cialis or Viagra or whatever, just to be able to maintain or to perform the way they performed throughout their lives. So it's something
That's not
that's
bad though, right?
it's part of this show. No, it's not bad. And the way that I think some of the medication is working now is you can get stuff that you can take daily that will just make sure if and when it occurs and you're ready to get an erection that you're able to, or others opt to do just the one pill that's going to give you the erection for that exact particular moment. So it's to the point, I believe, where it's such a common occurrence that it's now part of your follow-up procedure after a diagnosis like this.
I think, Chief, that's not bad news. I think if a man is looking at the possibilities, the worst case scenario, those are good remedies. I even have a close friend of mine who uses injection to do that, and
I've
he's
heard about
open
that.
and vocal. Yeah, so it's not bad. But listen, we only have. This is so interesting and so helpful. Thank you again for coming on. We only got like less than 2 minutes left, but then with the 2 minutes, I'm gonna let you close it off with this question. Yeah, whatever your response is. Of all the things that you've learned about prostate care, prostate cancer, have you been able to identify anything of particular concern or importance that you feel we need to focus on today that the men in this audience need to really zero in on? Shoot, go ahead, have at
Yeah,
it.
well, it's easy, like that's an easy question. So it's what I said before. We as black men don't always go and get ourselves checked. I'm telling every brother that's listening to this or watching this podcast right now, go get yourself checked. Please, please go get yourself checked out, whether it's even just simply getting blood work. But don't be afraid of them doing a physical examination to measure the size, the texture, the placement of your prostate. It's necessary. It really is. And can I do two things before I go?
Please, please.
Okay, so one, I want to give a shout out to the Wilmot Cancer Center here in town. They're the ones that helped me out. And on September 29th and October 1st of this year, they're doing their Wilmot Warrior Weekend, which is leaving cancer in the dust. One of it is a 5K walk here in Rochester, and on October 1st, it's a 5K bike ride. So I'm actually going to be doing the walk with another friend of mine who was not diagnosed with prostate cancer, but Brother went through the academy with me. He ended up just having an exam. They felt a lump in his stomach. They went to do the biopsy. Ended up first being told that he was not going to be able to have it removed because of where it was in his stomach. When they went in to do the biopsy, they found that they could in fact pull it. They did. They ran a biopsy on that, and he had a very, 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 very rare form of cancer that ultimately would have killed him. So, he was blessed by God to, have that discovered and taken out. And I'm saying this because it's, as important as it is for us to talk about prostate cancer, there's so many other forms of cancer out there. I have another very, very close friend of mine that was just diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he's in a fight right now. So if we don't get any other message from our podcast here today, it's this: please go get yourself checked out. Stay close to a doctor. If you don't have a doctor, find a doctor.
That is awesome. We thank you for sharing. I want to get we're beyond our time, but I got to get this in. I feel compelled to get this in. Give me the what was it? The Wilmot Center, their event on October 1st.
Yeah, the Wilmot Warrior Weekend. If you go to teamraiser.rochester.edu, you should be able to get there. I wish there was a chat. I would put it in the chat. Or actually, there is. Is there a chat? I could put it right in the chat.
Yes. That's great. Put it right in there, and we're going to get to that. And we had to record this, by the way, so it's not live. So we're going to get everybody to look at the recording. So
yeah, please go in. My team is Cop Doc Warriors. So COP, let me put that in here too. Cop Doc Warriors, that's the name of my team. Feel free, please, to donate to us and help us raise some money to leave cancer in the dust. Because the point that you made a little while ago, 1 in 10 are going to get this. Man, those numbers are too high. And if they're not getting prostate, they're getting something else.
Absolutely. So, Deputy Chief Harris, we thank you, sir. This has been phenomenal. Definitely want to have you back on again. And I don't think we need to wait till this time next year, because awareness is something in this arena that we want to keep alive. So,
yeah, Ed, man, anytime you want, man. God bless you too. Any time you want me to come back, just call. I'm there.
Will do. I know how to reach you too, so don't change your number.
Yeah, you do.
God bless you, family.
God bless you too.
I would be there on next Sunday on October 1st, except I have to preach that day. You're all invited. But be at Grace Baptist Church for the first time in a while because I had this surgery thing. And I'll be there at 11 o'clock, 811 King George's Road in Fords, New Jersey. Otherwise, I would be there. But since I'm not going to be there, Chief, I am definitely going to donate to your group. So everybody,
thank you.
Have a blessed rest of your Sunday afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. Bless you. And thank you for listening to this important information. Tell all your friends, share the video, get everybody come on. Sorry we went over, but this is very, very important. We love you all. God bless you. We will see you next time. If the good Lord wills. Take care, Chief. Anything you want to say? Goodbye, anything like that, Chief?
No, just thank you for the opportunity, Ed. I appreciate it. I always love talking to you, brother. I always really, really do. I appreciate the chance just to get this message out. So God bless everyone. Go get yourself checked.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one now.